Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Men of Yoshiwara Kikuya. We are finishing everything up now with the sub stories, and the very last two stories are Kagerou's, which happen to be Valentine's Day and White Day with him. So let's get started with Valentine's Day. And we get another gallery picture for him. Kagerou gives you chocolate and explains the significance of something receiving chocolate on February 14th. Valentine's Day scenario. The glowing lights lured the red light district into the world of night. Once again, I was walking towards Kikuya. I recently felt that Kagerou was being somewhat frank with me. As I thought that, I naturally walked with a lightness in my step.
Well, Misao-san, would you like to choose Kagerou again tonight?
Yes. This was the entrance of Kikuya, the #1 shop in Yoshiwara, a place I often passed through. I still wasn't used to the color of Iroha-san's bottomless eyes. But if I chose Kagerou-san, I could see the boy with the night-colored eyes. My feelings were a mix of anticipation and worry.
Hey, the young attendant over there. Take this client to the parlor room.
Iroha-san clapped his hands, and a young attendant from inside the shop took me to the parlor room. Through the sliding door that was opened slowly and silently was Kagerou-san, holding a red tray in his hand. Ah, Kagerou-san! Where is Kagerou-san?
Kagerou-san is coming here from another room, right now. I will take care of you in his place, so please, come here.
Yes. It was just me and the smug boy in the room. This unexpected situation somehow made my heart beat rapidly. As instructed, I sat down next to Kagerou-san, and he put the tray on the floor. An unfamiliar ebony-colored piece of something on the tray caught my eyes.
Are you curious about what it is, since it's an item that you don't see often?
Yes, I am. What is it?
It's an imported candy called chocolate. Kagerou's good client bought this as a gift.
This is candy?
Why don't you try one, Misao?
I have seen things like sugar candy and sponge cake, but this is the first time I've seen candy in Kagerou-san's white fingers.
Don't be modest.
I could smell something sweet coming from both his fingers and the candy coming towards my mouth. While thinking that the smile formed by the boy's sensual lips was beautiful, I slowly opened my mouth as if I were being seduced by Kagerou-san.
Here it is.
His fingers, which held the candy, brought a rich smell to my nose and slipped into my mouth. Kagerou-san's soft fingers touched my lower lip, and as soon as my heart beat with one large thump, the sweet yet slightly bitter taste slowly melted on my tongue. It's sweet. The unexpected way it melted in my mouth and the sensual and ripe smell that went through my nose made me feel that the boy who gave the candy to me had a slightly mature presence.
How is it? What does this so-called chocolate taste like?
While asking me what I thought about it, he licked the melted chocolate on the tips of his thumb. Well, it disappeared in my mouth like cotton candy. I felt nervous as it seemed that the boy's eyes were looking at my lips that he had just touched. When I answered his question without looking at him, he grinned at me unkindly.
Even though you're the naive daughter of a merchant, you still understand Western flavors.
No, it just tasted sweet. I naturally hesitated to answer his unusually harsh words. But was it okay for me to eat this? Wasn't it a rare item that was meant for Kagerou-san?
It's okay. I'm sure Kagerou-san would agree.
Good, but it really is delicious.
If you like it, you can have some more.
Thank you. I extended my fingers to experience one more time the happy sweet taste that loosened my cheeks. Won't you have one with me, Kagerou-san?
It's okay. I'm not good with sweets.
Just as Kagerou-san said so and refused my offer, the sliding door was opened.
I'm sorry to keep you waiting.
He looked at me and Kagerou-san gracefully from the entrance of the room.
Oh, you guys were trying the chocolates. Yes, Kagerou-san.
Kagerou-san gave me one before.
Kagerou did. I see. You gave it to Misao. Kagero-san narrowed his eyes gently and chuckled like a ringing bell. What happened? I see. I guess Kagerou didn't know. Kagero-san?
What do you mean I didn't know? As he laughed by himself in a way that would make you smile, he sat down in front of us.
Well, on the mainland, it has become a recent trend, giving this candy to the one you love on February 14th. Maybe the client who bought this to me had the same thing in mind.
The person you love. Kagero-san's words reminded me of the taste of the candy that Kagerou's hand brought to my lips. Of course, Kagerou didn't have those kind of feelings for me. But when Kagero-san said that, it made me feel restless, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. When I looked at Kagerou-san without thinking,
"What are you looking at? It's not like I—"
Kagerou-san? The usually cool boy opened his eyes wide, and his face turned bright red. Kagerou-san looked at Kagerou's appearance and covered his mouth in amusement.
I thought you already knew about the mainland's customs, but this custom is...
Like I'd know something like that. First of all, I'm busy with my training and studies, so I'm not interested in such silly things. Hearing it from Kagerou-san today is the first time that I've come to know about it. Even if I did know about it, why would I, to someone like Misao-san?
I see. Well, we'll leave it at that then.
Even after Kagerou-san reprimanded Kagerou-san for his panic outburst, he still smiled. While feeling flustered, wondering if I could get a word in between their exchange, I also stared awkwardly at Kagerou-san, who got worked up in a manner appropriate to his age.
But you should refrain from talking that way to this beautiful lady, Kagerou.
Well,
The time when you face your debut will come someday.
I understand. I'll keep that in mind. I felt that the words Kagerou-san said to the worked-up Kagerou made him feel disappointed. When Kagerou-san awkwardly looked away from Kagerou-san, our glances met for a brief moment. But as soon as Kagerou looked at me, he bit his lips and turned away in the opposite direction. But from over his shoulders, I could see that his cheeks were still a little red.
Misao, don't think poorly of Kagerou. Also, to add something, for the custom I talked about before, women usually give to men.
I didn't know that.
Kagerou-san, why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you tell me that sooner? Because you got so upset, which isn't like you, and I just...
Kagerou, who was sitting next to me, resentfully glared at Kagerou-san. I didn't expect the boy who was so fascinated by Kagerou-san to glare at him like that. I imagined that he must have been really embarrassed and felt a little bad for him. Just then, the sliding door of the parlor room was opened, and a young gentleman whispered something to Kagerou-san.
Misao, I'm sorry for being so busy, but I have to leave for a moment. You can eat and enjoy these candies as you like. Kagerou, please take care of her while I'm away.
Yes, Kagerou-san. Kagerou-san then bowed politely and left the room. Because of the awkwardness from before, Kagerou-san and I remained in silence for a while. I extended my fingers towards the chocolates, which looked bored in their position.
That's weird. The chocolates looked bored?
I'm sorry.
What do you feel sorry about?
Because I carelessly talked about the candy.
It's fine. I don't really care.
Kagerou-san still seemed to be in a bad mood. But as I saw his eyes sometimes wander to the candy on the tray, rather than a bad mood,
it's not like something you need to apologize for, Misao. And I did kind of fly off the handle. I'm too into my studies and training. I exposed my disinterest in what appeals to people.
I also had no idea that it was a gift that women gave to men. I'm sorry.
I already told you that you have no reason to apologize. Misao-san, is it possible that...
Kagerou-san's eyes flickered around like he was trying to search my thoughts.
Did you mistakenly think that I liked you?
You might have hit the nail on the head. This boy was definitely on my mind after hearing Kagerou-san's words. It's not like that. I opened my mouth to speak, but my voice was trembling. With the awkward atmosphere, I tried to bring my fingers that picked up a candy to my mouth, and when I did, the boy gently covered my fingers with his white fingers.
Is that so? Can you look me in the eyes and say that it's true?
Kagerou's fingers were as silk-like to the touch. Speechless, the candy slowly melted on the tip of my fingers, and the exotic smell filled the air. The boy's thin shoulders then suddenly came close to me. Kagerou-san's eyes, under his lustrous black hair, glowed slowly, like he had thought of a prank that would test me. This distance between us was so close, I felt my heartbeat start to automatically rise.
If you don't want to say it, you don't need to. I also didn't know anything about the custom involving this candy. But yes, if that's the way it is, then we'll follow the custom and you'll give me something.
Huh? His small, elegant mouth was being drawn to my fingers. He put my fingers to his moist mouth, along with the imported candy. The warm feeling tickled my fingers.
As expected, it's a little too sweet.
Kagerou-san, you said you weren't good with sweets. The melting brown piece of chocolate made Kagerou-san's beautiful lips dirty. Without answering my question, he licked the chocolate from his lips. The warm and slimy feeling made my cheeks get hot, and I tried to pull my fingers back.
This is revenge for before.
A mean smile came across his lips.
And perhaps it's not so bad to eat sweets sometimes, if I can see your face like that.
Kagerou-san. His whisper was sweeter than the candy that was still left on my tongue. Kagerou-san held my hand firmly and didn't let go. Was he teasing me, or was he playing with me? Isn't it kind of the same? His eyes that reflected the night sky, and his shapely lips even made me feel aroused. This time I was completely charmed by a new aspect of this boy. And the very last of everything, the White Day scenario. Kagerou suddenly gives you some sweets, but for what reason? Your mom gives you a can of sweet something. Said she got from a young man. Who was it that gave her the can? Why do these things have to be off the edge? White Day scenario. While keeping accounts for family business in my room, the door opened and my mother appeared.
Misao, someone left this for you at the entrance.
For me? In front of me, my mother placed an imported tin with a beautiful flower pattern painted on it. I could tell this was an expensive item from a single glance. When I opened the small tin, it smelled sweet. I immediately knew that it was a baked confection. A baked confection? Who gave this to me?
Oh, the person who left it for you was a young boy. Maybe he came from Yoshiwara. You don't know who that could be.
When my mother told me that, I thought, could it be him? And as soon as I realized it, I ran out of my room, holding the tin in my hand. But when I went outside the store, there was already no one like him around. I thought it might have been that straight-backed, black-haired boy. I thought it might have been Kagerou-san. But the street in front of the store was only filled with the bustle of people coming and going every which way. In the end, I didn't know who had bought me the baked confections. And without knowing, I made my way to Yoshiwara to run an errand that afternoon. Excuse me, I am from the shipping agent.
Thank you. Well, Misao, what is your plan for today?
Iroha-san chuckled at me in an alluring manner, and then asked me that question. No, today I've just come here to run an errand. As I was about to leave the shop, I looked back at Iroha-san. By the way, is Kagerou-san here?
Kagerou? Let's see. I think he's out doing martial arts training.
I see. Well, I'll be going then. I felt a little disappointed and left the shop. I thought I could see his face whenever I came here. The baked confection in the tin that I hid in my bag made a small sound every time I walked. When I passed Inari Shrine, the sun had already started to set. it was still too early for Yoshiwara to transform into a night town. As I walked by myself at twilight,
Misao-san.
Kagerou-san, who was carrying his tools on his back, appeared from the corner of the street. Without a second thought, I ran towards him, while smiling naturally.
Did you come to Yoshiwara at this time for an errand?
Yes, I went to Kikuya just before. I had something to ask you, but I heard you were away, so I'm happy I could see you here.
Something to ask me?
It's about this baked confection. When I took the tin out of my bag, Kagerou-san moved his eyes slightly. My mother received it. Did you leave this for me, Kagerou-san?
What do you think?
Am I wrong?
It was certainly I who brought it to your house, Misao-san.
But why?
No reason. Is it bad for me to deliver confections to you?
No, it's not like that. Kagerou-san, who was cool until a moment ago, was now clearly in a bad mood. He put his tools back on his back to avoid the conversation, then looked down at the ground. If he didn't want to answer me, I wasn't going to force him, but I wanted to express my gratitude. Thank you so much.
Please lift your head. I just took it upon myself to do it.
But I feel bad to accept something that looks this expensive.
Did I cause you trouble?
The boy's face became clouded with sadness. It's not like that, but I can't accept it without any reason.
I see. You're right, Misao-san.
Kagerou-san thought about it for a bit, and then looked up at me like he had made up his mind.
Do you still remember the chocolate from before?
Oh, that slightly bitter candy, the one that was part of the custom from the mainland.
Yes. Yesterday I saw Kagerou-san give candy back to his good client. I heard that there is a custom that if you get candy, you give candy back the next month.
Kagerou-san blushed slightly, and he ended his sentence in a quiet voice.
That time before, well, I was a little mean to you, so...
After he said that, he shrugged his shoulders. Seeing this age-appropriate innocence of his gave me a heartwarming feeling that made me smile. Kagerou-san certainly ate chocolates from my fingers to tease me that day, but... Don't worry about it. I also had a misunderstanding.
But I don't like to be impolite.
That's a lie.
And this is just an apology gift, so you don't need to be modest.
But... We were both acting modest in front of the shrine and looked at each other's faces. When we did, something about it felt kind of funny, and we started chuckling out of nowhere.
What am I saying? I'm not myself when I'm with you. Well, if you have time, we could sit down and talk a little?
Yes. Kagerou-san looked nervous and shyly took my hand. His warm fingers gently covered my hand. I felt kind of excited because his cheeks were definitely turning a little red. We sat down next to each other at the edge of the shrine.
I asked an acquaintance of mine who has links to the west to get that baked confection for me.
Just as I thought. I thought it might be rare because the painting on the tin was so wonderful.
Yes, it's all hand-painted. If you eat all of it, then that's that. But you still have this cute tin left. Have you tried it yet?
No, not yet. But I'm surprised that you went out of your way and asked someone to get this. I liked this unexpectedly serious side of him. That was enough to make me feel that the can in my hand was something precious. But if you did all that, it would have been better to give it to me directly.
That's true, but I didn't understand.
You didn't understand? Kagerou suddenly looked off into the distance and closed his mouth as if it was difficult to speak.
I'm an apprentice that still can't have a client. Our relationship isn't even one between a gentleman and a client. So it was okay for me to deliver it to your house. But I didn't know what to say to the person who came to the door.
On this island, just the presence of a man makes people think of Yoshiwara's love and lust. There is no such thing as innocent love between a young man and woman outside of the red light district. It shouldn't be like this, but this was normal on the island.
But I wanted to express this to you as my feelings, Misao-san. I wanted to give you something special. It's strange, isn't it? These feelings.
We were not lovers, and he wasn't a gentleman, nor I his client. What shall we call this relationship?
In the end, I forced it upon the person who came to the door, and then I left.
Kagerou-san, who sat down right next to me, smiled remorsefully. The small distance between our shoulders symbolized our current relationship. No, it's okay. I'm just happy that you told me about that. The boy who couldn't be honest about his feelings worried over me. His modest feelings and bewilderment brought an early spring breeze to my heart. It's too early to call it love. The feeling is that of something that has just budded. Kagerou-san, thank you. When I once again bowed to him politely, he rushed to put his hands on my shoulders.
Like I said, this is just an apology. Don't get any strange ideas.
Yes, it's your apology. I got it.
Then I'm okay, as long as you understand that.
He snorted with the usual cool look on his face, and to that he made an additional comment in a small voice.
I want to say thank you.
It's so nice of him to say something like that, in a hushed voice that may or may not reach my ears. Well, since I have it here, we should eat this confection together, too.
Yes, we should.
I opened the cute tin and picked out a large portion of the baked confection. I then placed it in Kagerou-san's palm, and he gently smiled at me.
It's sweet. Yeah, it's not as sweet as chocolate, but it's still too sweet for me.
You did say you weren't good with sweets, Kagerou-san.
But I don't hate them now. Maybe because I'm talking with you now, Misao-san.
With the baked confection in his mouth, he laughed and our glances met. Me too! When we eat together, everything tastes delicious.
Yes, it's much easier than eating alone. If this is how it's going to be, then I should have given it to you directly to eat it with you.
The baked confection that crumbles in my mouth brought us a sweet moment. Kagerou-san's expression was somewhat less harsh than usual. As I reached out to grab one more piece from the tin, my fingers touched his. I'm sorry. I almost dropped the baked confection, but Kagerou-san's whitefish-like hands caught it.
Got it. Here you go.
I softly put my mouth to the confection that he held out before my face. As I enjoyed the taste of the confection, I felt my cheeks increasingly become hot.
I'm glad that you're eating it with such pleasure, Misao-san.
As the sun set, we shared the confection and talked about trivial matters. Soon the evening lights of Yoshiwara would shine, and the town would make its transformation. Like this change, the day when he would emerge to be a professional gentleman was approaching. Even so, I wanted to cherish my time with Kagerou-san. I still wanted to carefully nurture this heartwarming feeling. I thought about that as our shoulders pressed up against each other. That is officially the end of everything to be read with the Men of Yoshiwara, as far as I know of. I hope that you enjoyed it, and perhaps you might enjoy looking at some of my other series. I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.